if you're watching this, I'm going to assume two things. First, you're in college. And second, you've been doing subpar in your classes and you're looking for ways to increase your grades and boost your GPA above what it actually is now. And you're not alone. There's millions of people looking up study-related videos like this who are trying to improve their grades and aren't quite sure how to get there. And what I'm going to do, without wasting any of your time, is I'm going to explain the steps that made it easier for me to get straight A's. And these go beyond basic study habits, but are more so mindset tricks and systematic changes that are going to make it much easier for you to do well in your classes and excel. And this is the part of the video where I'll say that if you like study-related content about college, then you should probably subscribe. But with that out of the way, let's get started. I have 3 pieces of advice for you. And the first one goes without saying. You should only be in classes that you actually enjoy. This will make it so much easier for you to get A's. And this sounds silly because a lot of people will sign up for classes and they'll go in with the mindset of, I want to find easy A classes. I want to find classes that will be easy for me to pass without me putting in any work. But interestingly enough, for me personally, and for a lot of other people I know, it's actually harder to do well in classes they don't care about than classes that are objectively difficult. If you seriously hardcore do not care about the content of the class, then it's going to be so much harder to hold yourself to studying and actually be consistent with your work. As I'm a neuroscience major, I was taking some classes in STEM, some classes in psychology, some I was interested in, some I wasn't really, but the classes that I was interested in were the easiest to do well in. There were always classes here and there that honestly weren't even that difficult. The material wasn't that tricky. The concepts were not that insane. However, I was so bored in these classes that I would periodically zone out and just miss chunks of information. And this can make it a lot harder to do well in your classes. Focus is important. You want to be able to focus in your classes. And if you're not doing classes that you actually enjoy, maintaining that focus is going to be so much harder. So my first tip to getting better grades, to getting straight A's, whatever you want, is to actually sign up for classes you enjoy. Do not go into it with the mindset of, I want to make this as easy as possible for myself. Instead think, what do I love? What do I enjoy? And let me pursue these topics. It's counterintuitive. It sounds like it would maybe even make your grades worse if you're possibly even seeking out harder classes because they interest you. But no, you want to be seeking out classes that interest you and that you're actually going to put time and effort into. And then my second piece of advice is that if you want it to be easier to get straight A's, then you really have to know what you're working for. If you're going through college and you're not quite sure what your end goal is, you just know that you generally want to do well in your classes, but you don't have an idea of what's going to happen afterwards, why you're working so hard, it's going to be much harder to strive for good grades and stay consistent. I found that the times in my studies when I was most set on a specific career and I was very motivated to work towards that end goal, it was so much easier to get good grades, almost as if they just came as a side effect. When you're really motivated to do something, whether it's a job or some business idea you have, or whenever you have a clear goal of what the future holds, it's a lot easier to push yourself in your classes and push yourself out of your comfort zone, study harder, study for longer, when you actually know what's at the end of the tunnel. And a lot of people stress out when they hear this. They think, I'm not exactly sure what I want to do right now, so therefore, I don't know what I'm working for, I don't know what to look for. And what I would say is, if you don't have a specific job in mind, if you don't know exactly what you want to be working in later in life, then you can kind of throw out that idea temporarily, stop thinking about jobs, and just think about general characteristics you want out of yourself that you're going to get from studying. So say you just want to be a more intelligent person. You just want to be that well-read guy that people come to for advice, for information. You just want to know a lot about the world. You want to be competent in a bunch of different fields. Some kind of value that is really important to you. You want to find something like this. Think about it for a while, maybe journal for a while. Think about your values, how you want to be seen, the kind of person you want to be, and think about how this relates to your studies. So if you want to be the guy who's super knowledgeable about a bunch of different STEM fields, maybe this would motivate you to do better in your STEM classes. Or if you want to be the person who everyone considers as very good at reasoning and logic, maybe this would push you to do better in your English, history classes. Think more critically about these texts you're reading. Any way that you can connect your current studies to your future end goals, whether that's career or just personal, are really good for motivating you to work harder in your classes. Because at the end of the day, the previous tip and this one as well, we're constantly looking for motivation. Motivation is really important when we're studying. We want to have a concrete reason why we're working so hard, and having an end goal makes this so much easier. And now my final tip to make straight A's almost effortless is that you need to take complete accountability for how you're doing in all of your classes. And I know this sounds silly because sometimes you might just have a horrible professor who does not know how to teach the information, but I'm sorry to tell you, if you go into classes with this mindset that, oh, it's the teacher's fault, I couldn't have done anything, they just tested us bad, we didn't read this material, I'm just a victim of circumstance, I don't know what to do. It's going to be so much harder to do well in your classes. I'm just telling you now. I've had tons of teachers who sort of just sucked, and I really just had to suck it up and say, you know what, they're not going to improve, so I have to figure out how to teach myself this material if the professor is not going to. And I can assure you, at least a couple times in your college experience, you're going to have a moment like this. You're going to realize that the professor's not teaching the information well, and it's somehow now your responsibility to learn it yourself. And the difference between high school, the thing about college that sets it apart, is that this is not abnormal. We are expected, in a sense, to teach ourselves the information and seek out the information on our own. As we're making sort of this transition into adulthood, it is becoming more and more normal for us to actually go out of our own way and teach ourselves information that's not necessarily just spoon-fed to us. So even if the professor taught horribly, if you can tell yourself that the grade that you didn't quite want that you got on a test recently is your fault, not to beat yourself up, but just to acknowledge that there are things that you specifically can do better to improve in these tests, on these essays, or whatever other assignments. If you acknowledge and you believe that you are the only person who can affect this change, then you'll have a better idea of what to do next. If the professor's not teaching well, you think to yourself, what resources can I look to learn this information? Is there a textbook I can read? Are there YouTube videos or other online resources that can help me learn this better? It's definitely a lesson in self-efficiency, getting these things done on your own. But if you believe that you can do it on your own, that you're not just doomed to the professor's notes, and that there are other ways to succeed without being explicitly taught all the information, you're going to do a lot better in your classes and continue to improve on your ability to be a self-starter. So if you want to do better in your classes, the 3 points we've talked about. First of all, only take classes that you enjoy. If you take classes that you hate just for an easy A, it's honestly going to be a lot harder to do well in those classes. Second, make sure you have a clear goal in mind. You want to have some idea of what the future holds to motivate you to do well and stay consistent in your studies. And third, maintain complete self-accountability when it comes to your classes. Understand that you can do things to change your grade. It's not up to the professor. It's up to you. You're in college and it's now your responsibility, but you can do this. And I'll leave you with this. If you're watching a video like this, you're clearly proactive and you clearly care about your academics. So all that's left is to get the work done. You can do this. Go out, do great things. I'll see you later.